Well, Hispanic Patriots, this is the last day of the DNC.
Hi, Kenneth.
We are kind of skipping over day 3, honestly, just because of a number of things. Number one, there's really barely any speakers that were worth mentioning. You had Nancy Pelosi, you had our own governor, Jared Polis, who was just kind of trying to outdo the state roll call guy. If you do see, you'll probably see the clip going around where he just acts super fabulous, I guess there's no other way to say it. You know, I guess he saw the guy doing the state roll call and going, "You're stealing my thunder." And then we had Tim Waltz, and there wasn't really much material there at all, to be honest with you. And then we had sort of the fake scandal about his son with a display of emotion. Nobody cared that he did that. It was expected, so
God bless America.
Nobody really has a problem with
All
that.
right,
But what we do have, starting on day 4, we have a lot of Colorado people actually on day 4. So if people don't think that Colorado is a swing state, their choice of speakers proves that. So we're going to listen to Michael Bennet, Senator Bennet of Colorado.
I am here in the Colorado delegation before it gets too crowded with Senator Bennet. Senator Bennet, you were the very first member of the United States Senate to publicly say that Joe Biden couldn't win the election. So tell me about how you're reflecting on that public statement.
It's true, Colorado was some of the first
to make that as a politician and
groups,
where we are tonight.
The Colorado Democrats to say no to Joe.
I just thought once I was convinced that that's what the outcome was going to be, that we were going to lose in a landslide, and that I think we were going to lose the House and the Senate.
They knew Joe was going to lose.
It was important to be honest about that and say it. And all I was trying
but they
to do
weren't
was
honest
suggest
about
that
it
we should
before
have an open debate
push
in
came
the
to
party
shove.
about what we do. And now tonight, you know, it's almost staggering to think about what's happened. President Biden has done something no other president has ever done, making a decision to put the country in front of his own political interests. And
again, he's not resigning, so that's total nonsense. Those two statements cannot exist with each other. I knew he was going to lose. He's giving up something. You're not giving up anything if you knew you were going to lose.
Drama and upset and competition and all that stuff. And we had to get a lot done in a short period of time to be coming out of this in the,
that's amazing,
in the position
isn't it?
that we're in. And the reason I raised
they
it
said
to begin
we
with
already
is
knew what was going to happen.
Really
it was going to be Kamala.
that we face not just a political choice this November. We face
you
a
don't know
moral
until the
choice.
voters
And
vote.
I, with my wife Susan, have raised 3 daughters. I used to be the superintendent of Denver Public Schools, working for
so
kids
that's the biggest thing out of
jobs.
Senator Bennett,
The outcome
honestly,
of this
is that he
really
basically
matters to
admits
them. And so
that the
I
reason
thought
we
it was
replaced
important to
Joe
say
with
something.
Kamala is there was
I've been very proud about
we knew
the way
that Joe
people have
was
come
going to lose.
together.
We ran him anyways,
What
but
do
we
you
knew
say
he was
to
going
the
to
critics
lose.
who said it should have been an open process rather than
yep.
Kamala Harris basically being anointed into
You know,
this.
what's
Anointed,
interesting
yeah.
is I don't think she was anointed. I think that
she
it was
wasn't
an
anointed.
organic process that led to her selection. I mean, there wasn't anybody there, and you know, saying that this is who it has to be. I mean, obviously, President Biden endorsed her, but what I felt.
Oh, but there was nobody who said it should be
an
Kamala.
organic.
Are the Clintons and Obamas organic?
Among the delegates to this convention and political leaders all across the country who said, yeah, we can have.
Senator
that
Bennett
kind of
claims that we
competitive
elected, we anointed
process, but it's very
Kamala
likely to
based
end
on
up in the same place
vibes.
anyway. And do we have the time to really do that? You know, would we better?
No, you didn't have the time, so you shouldn't have made Joe step down.
Forward with the
Well, you should have made him do it earlier.
And getting after the competition with Donald Trump. And I think it turns out that the organic thing was right, you know, and we've gotten to this
We
point
decided, after
we're in
much
far
consulted
better
with
shape
ourselves,
than I
that
think
we did the
would
right
have
thing.
Had we had some other kind of process. And I'll also say this, I've never met Tim Waltz and didn't know him and have not seen him give a speech until he gave the speech last night.
No. You see, the ticket
that was also
was
very
right.
striking
I didn't know
to
the
me
guy,
that
but we
this
definitely can
process
trust Tim Waltz.
Led to not just the selection of Kamala Harris, but the selection of Tim Waltz, who I think is going to do an extraordinary job repairing an issue that the Democratic Party has had for a very very long time, which is reaching out in a meaningful way to the middle of the country.
Vice President Harris is going to give the most important speech of her political career tonight. What does she have to do to be successful?
Or not the sunglasses, they're just sort of attached to the pole there. What she has to do to be
successful is say to America that we'd like to have you join us in this effort, that we are facing a seismic choice here, that we can turn the page on the divisive, chaotic politics of Donald Trump, and that we can actually begin to rebuild a
vote for Donald Trump's chaotic, divisive policies. Vote for our chaotic and divisive policies.
Talked about it the other night. The values that Tim Walz talked about last night are no different than the values that Michelle Obama was raised with on the
That's
south
kind
side
of the
of
problem,
Chicago.
guys,
Those
is
are
that
the
y'all's
values
morality
that
is
we
the
were
same
raised
level
on,
of
no matter where we come from in America. And over a long time in our country's history, we expected to have political differences, contend with those political differences, and live out the values that are described now by. And I think that's what she has to do tonight, and I suspect she will.
All she has to do is read our platform, and we'll be fine with her.
Nothing if we can't.
Joe couldn't do that
outside this hall and engage them in this election, and we've only got 75 or something like that days left to make it happen, and the race is razor thin. I was looking at the numbers today.
Again, that benefits the Democrats, that it's not too far away when the switcheroo happened.
Friendship, not just a professional political friendship. What do you want people to know about her from that personal friendship that they can't see on the public stage?
I mean, I guess what I would say is that here's what I think, there are 100 ways of being a U.S. Senator, and there are people who do that job and almost, never lift a finger to do anything. Kamala Harris,
and I would know something about not lifting a finger to do anything.
She pays attention. She's cordial to her colleagues. She listens to what other people have to say.
Imagine that. Like, what are your strengths as a worker? Well, I listen to people and I take my job seriously.
Somebody who is
yeah, that's a qualification.
She wants to have her voice heard, and we need to hear her voice. So that's one thing I would say. She was a member of the Intelligence Committee in which I served. We sat right next to each other. In fact, her promotion to vice president meant that I moved up one seat.
Her promotion to vice president is a great way of putting it.
And I've always sort of taken, I've taken pleasure in her promotion as a way of getting my own minimal advancement on that committee. I'm just kidding. But
what a weird thing to say. Oh, I really took pleasure when she got promoted because I got promoted too. I'm just kidding. Why would you? No, you're not.
It's amazing that she's been able to.
You're not kidding about that. You're happy you got promoted.
She's done it with an extraordinary sense of confidence.
That's my problem with, like, in general, Kamala, Bennett,
we should be confident in her leadership.
Warnock, Obama. It's this fake nice. We are so tired of fake nice. We can see right through you guys.
Thanks for spending time with C-SPAN.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be with you.
Anyway, so yeah, they interviewed Michael Bennett, who was kind of in the crowd of the Colorado delegation rather than a speaker, so that's kind of interesting.
You can see the blue sleeves that have been put over the back of the chairs down on the convention floor where the delegates speak. They are reserving their seats even with names tonight. That's not.
Yeah, I don't really know why they're covering that, because
so if you're a delegate and you have an assigned seat, you better be in the one that says your name for tonight's speech. Tonight it all.
Okay, so we got more copyrighted music from DJ Metro. Starting with DJ Metro. I also love that they had a picture of the one time or two that Kamala met Zelensky. It's like, oh man, you remember that one time we went to Switzerland and did nothing? And that's what we heard even from, while I searched for where we're going to continue this escapade. James O'Keefe and Project Veritas actually released videos of, we got Ted Lieu, but y'all know what Ted Lieu is about. He just spits vitriol. It's the same thing as you're expecting from him. But yeah, Project Veritas showed that a lot of people have very different opinions of Kamala Harris than she's kind of letting on. That people know that she's basically unlikable, that she could never win an election on her own, on a voting level. Yeah, you guys should check that out. And so now we have...
Please welcome Colorado Representative Joe Neguse.
Joe Neguse! There's a joke about someone's goose being cooked here, but I don't want to...
Good evening, Chicago.
Hey, they got a Colorado flag.
Joe Neguse,
I wonder what the story behind that one is.
Of Colorado in the U.S. Congress. My parents immigrated here from a place torn apart by war. They worked hard every day, made tremendous
Being from Chicago, I'm
sacrifices,
also a refugee that was fleeing
to
war.
never take for granted the educational opportunities.
And that was a joke at first, but it's like, no, I mean, there's war in the streets of America that we should care about.
It's because of them and because of those opportunities that tonight their son,
and they're all in
stands
Democrat
before you
cities.
as Assistant Democratic Leader of the U.S. House of Representatives. My fellow Americans, let me say this clearly. Don't let anyone tell you that the American dream is dead. It is alive and well, and it will grow even stronger with Kamala Harris as the next
What world
president
do
of the
you
United
live
States.
in, Joe? The American dream is still alive. You can definitely get it. That lack of housing and that lack of wage increase, that's just all in your head.
Kamala Harris believes that college can be a ticket to the middle class.
No
And she
kidding.
has fought
Can
to
be.
make it more affordable
Should
her
be.
entire career.
Guaranteed
As
to
California
be.
Attorney General, she took down one of the biggest for-profit colleges, securing $1 billion, $1 billion for students who were defrauded. Alongside President Biden, she expanded Pell Grants and secured record funding for HBCUs.
She helped prop up the failing
And Kamala
education
Harris
industry.
made public service loan
What an
relief
accomplishment.
a reality for teachers and first responders.
As vice
and
president, she
firefighters
never
and
told
nurses
Joe,
and
hey, maybe we
countless
should
others
forgive those student
across
loans
our
that we
land.
promised to forgive.
Vice President Harris delivered before, and she will do it again.
She's delivered before and she'll do it again. Yeah, but it's an empty box that she's
A
delivering.
more affordable future. A future where going to college doesn't break the bank. A future where my 5-year-old daughter, Natalie, who's watching us back home in Colorado right now, a future
Because I wasn't going to bring
where
my
she
child
can
here.
live her dreams. So those are the stakes. Let's make it happen, America. Let's make history, America. Let's elect Kamala Harris, the 47th President of the United States. Thanks so much. God bless. Thank you.
It's a little generic. Got more voices here from various people.
I basically worked in public service my entire adulthood, over 27
All right, Elizabeth
years.
Warren. We got Elizabeth Warren. I would do Raja Krishnamurti, but to be honest, I don't know who he is. So despite him being a Democrat from Illinois, I have nothing against the man. I just don't know who he is, so. But we all know who Elizabeth Warren is. Woo! It's that lady that pretended to be a Native American. Woo! Like it's just it's this sort of embarrassing series of things that follows the Democrats that I just find easily avoidable. See, that's what I'm saying. They emotionally eat up the love from the crowd. For them, it's about them. It's not about the people they see. In the RNC, it felt the opposite. The speakers energized us. We didn't necessarily energize the speakers. Even a lot of the everyday Americans that went up and spoke, they were for the people. They really got into that principle. So again, notice how the Democrats at the DNC also cheer for Democrats that are very unpopular outside of this party boss kind of meeting.
Kamala Harris can't be bought, and she can't be bossed around.
I believe half of that statement. I believe she can't be bossed around or be told advice or anything like that, but can't be bought? Why not?
The banks had flat
She could definitely be sold.
broken laws, cheated people, and stolen homes. Millions of Americans had lost their jobs, their savings, their homes. Now, I was setting up the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Go CFPB! Yeah.
Go my bureaucracy. Yeah, that bureaucracy I made, love it.
Protecting families as California's Attorney General.
And tearing families apart as California Attorney General
Donald
also.
Was scamming students at Trump University.
At least he wasn't literally enslaving them to the state of California for free prison labor.
Kamala Harris stepped up. She enforced the law.
She enforced the law on those minor weed offenders, absolutely.
Billions of dollars of help for families.
And billions of dollars to the state of California in slave labor of mostly black, Hispanic, and Asian men. Gonna keep saying it until a Democrat actually gives a good answer to that, or specifically Kamala Harris, because no press conference in how long?
You know what else I love about Kamala?
No, but I'm sure you're gonna tell us. She gets it. That's what I like about her.
Affordable for working people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Donald Trump,
nobody else agrees that we should make life more affordable.
Has no plans to lower costs for families.
How does Donald Trump simultaneously have no plan but a 9,000-page document to make your life terrible? Isn't that the plan?
Fill up a gas tank or worry about a grocery bill.
The audacity of the Democrats talking about gas and groceries.
From his criminal defense lawyers.
The only reason you're paying gas expensive and groceries expensive, Trump defense bills.
She cares deep down. And she will take on the giant corporations that are squeezing American families.
Elizabeth Warren has always been like the acceptable Bernie.
She's done before. During the California wildfires, she went after the price gougers. During the pandemic, we worked together in the Senate to stop price gouging. And as president,
that pandemic we caused, we at least made sure that no one else made profits on it. Only Pfizer and the people we gave immunity to.
She'll take on the Wall Street.
I thought you said she can't be bought, but
millions of houses and apartments and then jack up the rent. She'll take on drug companies that
isn't she friends with BlackRock and stuff
for prescriptions. She'll take on corporate monopolies that rip off consumers and billionaires who don't pay taxes.
You mean like J.B. Pritzker? That's a good question. He was like, I'm a billionaire. It's like, is Elizabeth Warren just running up to be like, pay your taxes?
Extremists who think they should decide who has access to abortion or IVF. Kamala will protect.
What is this like? Oh, Republicans are against IVF. Like in the Catholic Church, there's a prohibition on it effectively in order to avoid like scientific manipulation of genetics. But Protestants in America have no problem with it at all for the most part. So I don't know where this anti-IFV stuff is coming from.
And JD Vance to look out for your family. Shoot, I wouldn't let those guys. I wouldn't trust them to move my couch.
Well, obviously you wouldn't trust them to move your couch. They're your political opponents. I wouldn't let my rivals in my house either. What kind of like mic drop is that?
We need Kamala Harris.
The guy in the beret and the pink shirt. Who is that? Samuel L. Jackson or something?
Is about your family and your future. I've seen Kamala Harris fight. I've seen her win. And when it comes to our families and
well, I'd imagine in arguments she wins. She's the vice president.
Harris is someone we can trust. So here it is, with joy in our hearts. Let's elect Kamala Harris the next president of the United States.
The United States. I don't know, just this one observation, really, honestly, is that the Democrats are really big on gesticulations like this.
Engaged in the serious work of safeguarding America's.
All right, so another Colorado politician, Jason Crow, who I've actually had personal interactions with. He's a big supporter of Ukraine in the local community, so as a Republican, I do respect him on that. So let's see what he has to say.
Congress,
He'll actually probably be at an event on Saturday, the Ukraine Fest. You guys should come.
Over 100 combat missions in Iraq and Afghanistan taught me what really makes America strong and secure. You see, it's not tough talk. It's not chest thumping. Because in war, talk is cheap.
That's true.
And trust me, I know a couch commando when I see one.
Like Joe Biden, who, from what I understand, screamed at you saying, what did you do to earn your Bronze Star that my son didn't do?
Come from our people.
Jason earned it in combat and Bo didn't.
Donald Trump's Project 2025.
So he's got the Project 2025. I wonder if it's the same document or do they all have different books?
Abandon our veterans, our allies, and our principles. In Chapter 4, Trump plans to do Putin's bidding by abandoning Ukraine and walking away from our NATO
So, and this is something I'm going to mention to Jason if I see him. Trump has offered $500 billion to Ukraine. It's in the form of a loan.
Our national
but what other situation can we liquidate that money? Can we give that liquid money to Ukraine at all?
Loyalists.
Well, you guys would replace loyalists in your administration too.
To let Trump's golf buddies decide when and how our friends are sent to war.
Trump's golf buddies shouldn't decide who gets sent to war. Obama's golf buddies should be the one to get sent to decide who gets sent to war.
We raise our right hand and we take the oath. We know that it comes with sacrifice, but we also know that it comes with a promise that America will have our back. Trump will break that promise. In fact, in Chapter 20 of Project 2025, he plans to slash veterans' benefits and then privatize.
So again, they're conflating Project 2025 with Trump's policies. If Trump's already disavowed 2025, then what Jason's saying is essentially just conjecture, honestly, with no evidence.
First, and then the others follow.
I wonder if he knows blood on the risers.
Always go first. But Trump.
Yep.
Trump. He would push your.
If the king doesn't lead, how can he expect his subordinates to follow? That is a military virtue.
Our troops deserve a commander-in-chief who will always have their back. That leader is Kamala Harris.
Even though, again, she couldn't give the time of day and denied the very deaths of our servicemen in Afghanistan, but servicemen and women, I should say.
Commander-in-chief.
So Jason's kind of got the military vibe going on here. And not a very long speech, so, you know, there were definitely problems with it. But again, we'll see what you can say to that. So you're going to want to look up the Ukraine Festival, Ukrainians of Colorado. Big shout out to those guys because they are fantastic.
Evening. I'm Melissa Slotkin. I am honored to be your U.S. Senate nominee.
Sorry, for a second I thought that said Fat Ryan, and I thought he was like a content creator or something. And I was just like, well, that's a bit off-kilter for Democrats. So I'm debating, do you guys want to see Al Sharpton? I wish this was a live feed and you could tell comments, because I don't want to listen to Al Sharpton. This we much, and about that be committed. I don't, is it going to be funny? Is kind of what I'm thinking. Let's listen to a little bit and we'll decide if it's boring or not. Because afterwards we got like some activists, we got some other people. Not too many important people until we get to closer to Kamala's speech.
Thank you.
We got Mullet Man in about a half hour after Al Sharpton.
Thank you. Good evening.
This we much.
I stand before you as the president
to be committed.
Of National Action Network. We do not endorse candidates, but we report where candidates stand.
We're not endorsing nobody.
Economic empowerment, health equity, and other issues.
How convincing.
On one side of this race is Donald Trump, a fellow New Yorker I've known for 40 years. Only once in that time, did he take a position on racial issues. He spent a small fortune on full-page ads calling for the execution of 5 innocent young teenagers.
Why do I get the feeling that he either didn't or that that's a little bit...
I'm going to bring them out in a minute, but...
Oh, you're going to bring them out in a minute.
Tonight.
But again, remember, Jesse Jackson and Donald Trump used to be friends. So, and Oprah and Donald Trump used to be friends. So, but Al Sharpton's always been kind of just aggressive. He's never really been popular until like the age of racial tensions.
To fan racial flames.
So do you fan racial flames? Racial feints? Feigns? Feigning racism. There you go.
To commemorate the 59th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. Kamala Harris spoke to me that day about unity and passing bills. All I ever heard from
Douglas
Donald Trump
Hughley.
was
I think his
how
name is
he
Douglas
can get an
Hughley.
advantage.
D.L. Hughley. Sorry.
I see one candidate who wants to protect the right to
Got
vote,
a guy who, a police
while
officer
the
who was at
other
January
has
6th, from what I
tried
understand.
to cook up 11,000 votes in Georgia. I see a candidate who, with Joe Biden, brought leaders to
We'll have
the White
Gabrielle
House
Giffords, or
to
Gabby
confront
Giffords, and then
violent hatred, running against a man
Mark Kelly,
who said neo-Nazis in Charlottesville were fine people.
Again, I think it's so funny that those neo-Nazis who were quote-unquote supposedly fine people from Donald Trump later all voted for Joe Biden.
Who wrongly assumes his mugshot appeals to black Americans.
Wrongly?
I work with
You mean
Kamala
correctly?
Harris.
It appeals to me.
Every job she's had, she has consistently committed.
If you're part of the
to
working
making
class in
government
America
work
and you haven't been
for
to jail at
those
least
of us
once
who've
for
been
something
disadvantaged.
stupid, I don't trust
All
you.
Donald Trump has been consistent about.
But remember, Al Sharpton has been
making
middle class
himself
bourgeois
richer
his entire
and
life,
sowing
unlike a lot of
division
other
to
civil
get
rights
that
leaders.
done. This man sat right here in Chicago a few weeks ago, refusing to apologize for claims that migrants were taking black jobs. Well,
Migrants are taking black jobs. What do you mean he has to apologize for it? What jobs do you think we get taken first as the working class? You can't say, oh, black people are part of the working class, they can't get up generationally, same with Hispanics, and then say, migrants aren't taking your jobs. Well, they ain't taking white-collar jobs.
And we are going to join with whites.
And if they are, well, I mean, you're middle class. You can probably deal with it, right?
We're going to do a job on those that have done a job on us.
From a Democrat perspective, it's just, I don't even know where they align on the class war anymore.
Tonight we are going to realize Shirley Chisholm's dream. "52 years ago, I was one of the youth directors in her campaign for president. And 52 years after she was told to sit down, I know she's watching us tonight as a black woman stands up to accept the nomination for President of the United States."
Again, I'm going to keep mentioning this. Douglas woman. It's really unfair, actually. Between Obama being half white and half black, which is its own racial combination, it creates its own story, honestly. We've never actually had a black president in this country, and we won't if Kamala Harris gets elected either. If we elected Herman Cain back in the day, then we would be able to say, oh, we elected a black president. But we can't, even if we elect Kamala. First Douglas president, first mulatto president, not first black president.
We fought
Just
hard.
Facts.
We fought hard for LGBTQ loved ones to get out the closet. We won't
get out the closet. I'm sorry, that was a great way of putting it. I love it. That's the thing. I don't like what Al Sharpton usually is spewing out, but I do kind of like his accents.
To choose, the right to education.
I say, it reminds me of people I grew up with. It reminds me of a lot of great things.
To get the right to vote, we won't.
Part of me wishes I was at the DNC just to be back in Chicago. Is this still copyright if I just sing the song? Because I do feel it when I'm back in Chicago. I will say that. You notice it says back to Chicago because it implies that you've left. This is the only way to live in Chicago, is to keep going back because you have family still trapped there.
We must be committed.
Be committed! He said it. He said we must be committed. And we will much about that. Be committed. Yeah. I knew we were watching Al Sharpton for a reason.
Because others fought and suffered for us, and we vowed tonight we won't go back.
Not one step back, comrade. I'm sorry, but watch the death of Stalin. So much vibes about the Democrats. I'm sorry, but that's how it feels when you're working the Democrats.
And fair nation. And let me say, as we transition, I'm a preacher. And
if you couldn't tell, he was a preacher.
Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. We've endured January 6th. We
endured January 6th running away with gas masks on, not encountering anybody.
And areas of darkness, but if we stay together, black, white, Latina, Asian, Indian,
Latina, not only Latinas apparently.
Together, joy,
Latinos, get out of here.
Joy,
what the heck?
Coming in the morning. I want to now, since I was a teenager, I was mentored by Reverend Jesse Jackson. And Reverend Jackson taught us to fight for what's right. And now I want to bring out some young men that I fought for. I referred to them then. They were known as the Central Park Five. Now they are the Exonerated Five.
So, I'm going to be honest, I could care less about this, because again, what's hilarious is they're putting young black men on the stage to say, oh, well, Donald Trump accused these guys or made a statement saying, well, if they did the crime, they should be executed. They didn't do the crime, so Donald Trump obviously doesn't feel like they should be executed. Kamala Harris actually put young black men in jail to be used as slave labor for the state of California. But Al Sharpton is trotting out these guys because Donald Trump made a passing remark about them. And now they're, adults, not in jail, unlike some of the people that Kamala Harris put behind bars. So again, just very extremely disingenuous. All right, we're gonna move on from this because this is just gonna be a ridiculous circus area kind of.
He proceeded to solicit $1 billion from the fossil fuel companies because if elected, he would roll back environmental rules and repeal regulations.
Remember when under Obama the BP oil spill happened? But Donald Trump is the one who's gonna destroy the planet through oil.
Trump would
do just what? Letting Russia
security and economic
drill all the oil? Because we know they're so clean, Russia and China, when they burn coal and drill for oil.
Sees the future differently. She's a clean energy champion. She took on big oil that gouged America.
For respect and a living wage.
So we got Senor Mullet here.
Their fight yesterday is our fight right now. Right now.
And there isn't a whole lot of interesting people otherwise. There is a Pink concert in the middle of it, which that's kind of interesting. And then the chicks. We got the chicks and Pink. I genuinely wonder why they're singing the anthem like 2 hours into the DNC. I believe that we did it like very early on, like you're supposed to.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the red.
Still, beautiful national anthem.
A 17-year-old single mom fighting for justice for the American people.
I believe these are the families of the various people involved.
She guided me.
Oh, Hughley, we got this cop. And again, you can literally take a look at who these people are and get the idea of what their purpose here is.
And then, out of nowhere, I got pregnant.
So much about abortion in this. Like, it's like weird. Yeah, just to be clear, yeah, these two people are married. So, incestuous politics going on.
I served in Congress from a swing district. Everybody called me a rising
star. Pink concert. One of the
Then
things I was trying to
on
avoid was
January
anything from Pink. Again, copyrighted music. So much of it at the DNC here. So we have Mark Kelly, who you've all heard from the campaign trail. He might as well just walk out there and be like, I wasn't good enough to be vice president.
Michelle. I had to follow Gabby and Pink. Gabby.
It's one of the only ones where I'll actually agree, yeah.
Day. She was able.
So one thing that offends me a little bit is Leon Panetta being here. One of the worst defense secretaries was basically did nothing for Ukraine, screwed up a lot in Libya. You know, it should be said, Barack Obama is the first quote-unquote black president, and one of the things he did was bring slavery back to Africa, because that's what happened in Libya. Slave markets were opened by these Islamic terrorists because we did nothing after we helped the French take down Gaddafi. Is the best way I can say that. Help the French to take down Gaddafi.
2 helicopters, 150 miles into Abbottabad at night.
I'm fairly certain that Leon Panetta also was the person that presided over Benghazi, if I'm not mistaken. So, if I am mistaken about that, still Joe Biden and the rest of them were as well. But okay, we got Gretchen Whitmer. That's the lady that faked a terrorist attack on herself. Made that mistake in the first one. We got Eva Longoria after this, and the traitor Adam Kissinger. Kissinger. It's always a name like that, isn't it? So there's not too much from Gretchen Whitmer, so we'll hear what she has to say, because she's one of just the worst when it comes to wanting to lock people up for basically no reason. Just like Kamala, so want to make that point very clear to people.
In Lansing,
Vice Chair of the DNC, how nice for her.
But in Detroit, they call me Big Gretch.
You know, I don't think anybody calls you Big Gretch, lady.
Donald Trump called me that woman from Michigan.
You are that woman from Michigan. What else could be said about you? You're not Big Gretch.
Being a woman from Michigan is a badge of honor.
No, it isn't. I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend any females in the audience from Michigan.
Like women.
I'm not saying, you know, it's generalization, obviously, and you probably don't fit it because you're a Republican. But no.
Get stuff done. At 29, I joined the sandwich generation. Sandwiched between working and raising my newborn and caring for my mom.
Whoever heard of that, the sandwich generation? That's sad.
It was hard.
Much prayers to your mom, but who calls that the sandwich generation?
It's life.
That's called the struggle for life. I have to work and take care of my family, and that's welcome to the working class, lady. Welcome to the people. Yeah, people just trying to make it.
Harris knows who
above your laws.
She took care of her mom, who also battled cancer. As president,
it reminds me of what Chris Rock says about a lot of this stuff. It's like, I take care of my kids. What do you want, a cookie? You're supposed to take care of your kids. What? She took care of her mom. You're supposed to.
Ours. She knows us.
She knows us. Well, she's not a complete straight. Donald Trump doesn't know who you Democrats are. You won't even talk to him.
That when your car breaks down, you can't get to work.
Yeah, didn't you know that when your car breaks down, you can't get to work?
Chauffeur.
You all have chauffeurs. If your car breaks down, you don't change the tire yourself right there. Although there is pictures of Eric Trump doing that, just because it was faster.
You think he's ever been to a grocery store?
What is with this idea that Donald Trump's never been to a grocery store? Like, rich people also go to grocery stores, people.
But Kamala Harris,
if you're in Illinois, just go to a Mariano's. You'll probably run into somebody who makes 6 figures.
She sees us. She is us.
Kamala Harris is us. She sees us, and we are her. We are the hive mind. It's just vibes, man. Like, that's the vibes.
A lot of history over the past few years. Floods and fires. An attempted coup. A plot.
A successful coup, you mean, against Joe Biden.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, and then she mentioned, yep.
We don't know what the next 4 years will bring. But what we do know is this. Through it all, your life won't stop. You're
Thanks. Yeah, your life won't stop. We won't let it.
Pick up the kids and pay your bills. And then
marry and reproduce, obey. Just serious they live vibes. Like,
a news alert goes off. Something happened.
Nothing ever
hit
happens.
The fan.
Something hit the
You'll ask, is my family going to be okay? And then you'll ask, who the hell is in charge?
Nobody's in charge. Your guy said he wasn't good enough to run for office.
It's him. What if it's that man?
What if it's that man? Orange man bad. This is the most orange man bad kind of, because it's a bunch of implications is what I mean in Gretchen's speech.
In a crisis, we need someone strong enough to come up with a plan, to tell the truth, and
that's the lady that won't even take questions from the press. I tell you what.
Now, before the crisis is when we get to choose.
You get to choose. Your voters didn't get to choose at all.
And
yeah, we get to choose is right. But like Bennett said, you know, it was just an organic process. The kind of organic process that happens exclusively from the top down. That's an organic process to a Democrat.
As our commander-in-chief, America, let's choose Kamala
I want the woman that's just like me. Oh, it says fight like hell. That's Donald Trump's slogan. They're literally ripping off so much from the RNC and Donald Trump, it's ridiculous. Which is funny that people say, oh, the party switched or whatever or got more extreme or something, when RFK Jr. now has endorsed Donald Trump. Okay, yeah, we're going to make that one quick point about Eva Longoria, who says, she se puede. What is this Spanglish? You know what? It's not a horribly long speech. We'll listen to Eva just for the Hispanic perspective.
Knowing that
usually I wouldn't do an actress like this at all. Usually I would not at all like listen to what this woman has to say, give her time of day or anything. But for fun and Hispanic representation, because there's been so little at this DNC.
Excited to be here tonight. What an honor to be part of this historic moment, and y'all are part of it.
What are they not part of it? Is there some universe where they wouldn't be part of it? Y'all are part of it, didn't you know?
For more than a decade, and she comes from a family a lot like mine, and I'm sure a lot like yours.
Yeah, you notice that the women only support Kamala because she's like them.
No one was gonna
this inability to support people who are not like you is called bigotry.
That we were going to have to touch every rung of the ladder to get ahead. We were going to have to work really hard. Now, she worked in
as opposed to everybody else who gets to work really easy.
And look at us now. You see, Kamala and I were able to see beyond.
Yeah, but when you guys worked at Wendy's and McDonald's, it actually paid for your college. So remember, these people are boomers. Like, you gotta remember about that. Trump has referred to himself as desiring to be the last boomer. He wants to destroy that culture.
We have to have each other's back.
He wants to destroy at least the negativity of that culture, because we want to obviously keep the positive like we have with Hugo and stuff. But these guys represent those who feel entitled to success, like she said. Tailcoat riding is all they know how to do.
So let me tell you, in the Latino community, in our
Here
community, we have a saying,
Si se puede, yeah.
Which means,
yes, we can. Thank you for admitting that you stole it, Obama.
But tonight, I'm here to tell you, yes, she can.
Yeah,
so we're gonna say
she se puede. Again, what is this Spanglish nonsense?
Is she ready to lead this country forward? We're going to say, she se puede.
Which is funny because in Spanish it's ella se puede, which actually sounds perfectly fine. Ella se puede, ella se puede. What's wrong with, but no, she se puede. That's my problem with the Democrats. They actually desire the Anglification of Hispanic culture to fit with who they are. That is something that I have always been deeply offended about, and why, as a Hispanic, I can only be a Republican. They don't demand that I get rid of my culture internally to be around them. Love the variety of video quality here. But yeah, wanted to make sure we got that. Si se puede. What a insult to the guy who put his life on the line to, again, Cesar Chavez. I mentioned this in our American Crisis video. Cesar Chavez, who put his life on the line to defend our border.
Please
That's his slogan.
Illinois Republican Representative Adam Kinzinger.
The traitor himself. Adam Kinzinger. I keep saying I wanted to say Kissinger like the diplomat, because they're all the same.
Thank you. I'm Adam Kinzinger, and I am proud to be in the trenches with you.
Adam Kinzinger, proud traitor.
Sometimes awkward alliance that we have to defend truth, defend democracy.
Yeah, it should be say former indeed. Former, like.
I was just a kid when I was drawn.
It should also be said Adam moved to the left the more obvious it became that Republicans couldn't win in Illinois. He was one of the people who was key to the imbluening of Republicans from Illinois. So he is king traitor in Illinois. No, we think you would, because you're a grifter.
I've learned something about the Democratic Party, and I want to let my fellow Republicans in on the secret. The Democrats are as patriotic as us.
The Democrats are as patriotic as us. That's the thing that they've been trying to do. They've been trying to resurrect Democrat patriotism. We'll see if it actually works. Because I actually would agree that Democrats and Republicans love the country for two entirely different reasons. And those reasons matter. And it shows that Adam never had a Republican reason for loving America.
And they are as eager to defend American values at home and abroad as we conservatives have ever been.
We conservatives, implying he's a conservative Republican. Again, he led the imbluening of Republicans in Illinois.
Something I couldn't ignore. The Republican Party is no longer conservative.
The Republican Party no longer conservative.
Switched its allegiance from the principles that gave it purpose to a man whose only purpose is himself.
Which is why he, when he invited RFK Jr., only talked him up, only talks up other people.
Pretending to be strong.
And he would know something about weak men pretending to be strong. That's his entire persona.
Small man pretending to be big.
Again, he would know.
He's a faithless man pretending to be righteous.
Even though he is religious. Again.
He's a perpetrator.
Because he would know about
who can't stop playing the victim.
Because Donald Trump has never been the victim of anything to these people.
He puts on quite a show, but there is no real strength there.
It's like mirror talk going on right now. Everything he's saying, he could be saying that to the Democrats in front of him.
Lies in defending the vulnerable. It's in protecting your family. It's in standing up for our Constitution and our democracy. That is the soul of being a conservative. It used to be the soul of being a Republican.
So the Democrats who want to enlarge the Supreme Court and destroy the Second Amendment somehow are pro-Constitution, but the Republicans aren't anymore? No. This man is just bitter that he can't be a representative anymore in his party.
Sapping our strength, softening our spine, whipping us into a fever that has untethered us from our values.
Again, the values he abandoned to keep getting elected in Illinois.
As Donald Trump's deceit and dishonor led to a siege on the United States Capitol.
A siege that they let happen. I hope you all can also see just how slimy Illinois Democrats really are. This is one reason I just had to get out of Chicago, and I recommend anybody else do, even if you move to other parts of Illinois, because it's just, they're treasonous, they're cowardly, they are mean-spirited, they're like Democrats, and that's what they were.
A man who tried to overthrow a free and fair election. How can a party claim to stand for liberty if it sees a fight for freedom in Ukraine? An attack pitting tyranny.
You mean like Mike Johnson, who openly supported Ukraine? I spoke to Mike Johnson personally about this, and I thanked him for supporting Ukraine. He seemed to genuinely appreciate that.
Weirdly obsessed with Putin. And his running mate,
I haven't heard Donald Trump. When I saw Donald Trump speaking on day 3, He called Putin a maniac, said Putin will not stop at Ukraine, and now is offering to give a $500 billion loan to Ukraine for them to buy whatever they want, whereas Joe Biden and Kamala Harris sequestered $2 billion out of the money for Ukraine. The corruption is not in Ukraine. The corruption is here in America, and that's sad and frankly evil, because that's lives being torn apart because somebody in our country that was probably allied with Joe Biden wanted more money out of the Pentagon.
Weak man.
So Adam either doesn't know this and has been completely fooled, or knows and doesn't care because he hates Donald Trump personally that much.
The answer is really simple, ladies and gentlemen. We must put country first.
Not values first, not anything first, but my understanding of the country. No, your career first, Adam. That's what this is. He wants a career after this.
Because the fact
a lot like our
I
own Ken Buck in some ways.
I know Kamala Harris shares my allegiance to the rule of law, the Constitution, and democracy. And she is dedicated to upholding all three in service to our country.
But not the Second Amendment.
Policies we disagree on pale in comparison with those fundamental matters of principle.
It shows how conservative Adam really was, that his values align with Kamala Harris.
Listen.
That California delegation must be miserable.
If you still pledge allegiance to those principles, I suspect you belong here too. Because
he's a Republican saying y'all belong in the Democrats if you love America.
No party.
There's so many traitors people at the DNC, honestly. We had former Democrats, sure, but we never had anybody who was just full-throatedly careerist for the purpose of being there, or being there for only the purpose of careerism.
If you think those principles are worth defending, then I urge you, make the right choice. Vote for our bedrock values, and vote for Kamala Harris. God bless you.
Yeah. You know, they say if you have to choose between removing a traitor or an enemy, you choose the traitor first.
Policy advocate and sister
because
of
those
the Vice
people
President, Maya
have
Harris.
no allegiance, even to you. That man has no allegiance to the Democrats that he just spoke to. They don't care. Maya Harris, yeah. I'll make a point. Maya Harris looks a lot more like her dad than her sister does, and actually has kids from her own marriage. So take that how you will.
Left the only country she'd ever known to chart her own path in America. She came here to pursue an education, but she stayed here to build a life. Her name was Dr. Shamala Gopalan Harris.
Gopalan, not Gopalan. Like, I love how she even said the Indian name of her mother in an Afro accent.
So many things to so many people.
It's okay to be a mixed race. That's what frustrates me so bad. She had an opportunity, this family had an opportunity to show what true racial diversity is, to say, hey, there's lots of mixes. Hispanic isn't the only one that has this sort of new identity from individual pieces. She could have easily done this. Kamala probably could have won a lot of Hispanic votes by doing that. She doesn't care about the Hispanic vote. That's just the truth of it.
And do anything. And we believed her. You see, Mommy understood the power and the possibility that come with knowing and showing who you truly are. She knew we could be the authors of our own stories, just as she'd been the author of her own. Mommy's journey.
I really dislike that they never mentioned the father just because he denounced her because she disrespected Jamaican culture. Like, I really hate that. The exclusion of the fathers in so many of the DNC stories. So many, this my mom. You know, I get that there's a crisis of fatherhood in this country, but I know from the personal biographies of many of these people that their fathers were around. So what is this denial of them? It's really wrong.
Fighting for each of us to have that freedom. And like so many Americans, Kamala knows what it's like to be underestimated and be counted out. She knows what it's like to be the underdog. And
you know, there's some rumor that Donald Trump is going to get Willie Brown and Kamala's father at the debates. So I would love for that to happen, honestly.
So much optimism.
Barack Obama's brother is a Republican. Just look him up on Twitter. He's not only a Republican, the man is based.
We are living in a time when some...
And I don't buy that from Obama. Oh, I couldn't help my... No, if I was rich, I would go to all my extended relatives and be like, yo, let's get together. Like, especially if they lived in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, in rural Kenya, or even urban Kenya. Like, these are areas that, like, could use American investment otherwise, but Obama didn't do anything.
Connection. Where others want to drag us back to the past. My sister says, hold up now. We are not going back.
Not one step back, says Kamala, Comrade Kamala. I'm sorry, but not one step back is a communist slogan. No pasarán. There's so many variants of this.
We have so much more in common than what separates us. She knows the measure of our success isn't just winning an election. It's about who we bring along and lift up in the process. And so as I look out at all of you today, and take
there's been a lot of children with like very simple signage and everything. I want to say there wasn't a whole lot of children at the RNC. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't remember
smiling.
Pretty much anybody with baby strollers or carrying babies. The wife of our chairman was about 7 months pregnant or so. But that's the actual furthest I have ever seen.
She say that's enough. You got work to do.
So it's because it's a very difficult event. Like, you do not want to bring your children to this sort of thing. It is like a festival. You're going to bed at X in the morning and waking up at morning time in order to like know what's going on day to day. You really do. It's like more of a music festival vibe. You don't want to bring your children to that. It's going to be exhausting. It's not a good idea. But they did that for the sympathy points. So.
Sister, the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris.
Again, there's this sort of urban twang that they want to put together with this, and it's just not authentic to their experience. Again, they spent their summers in India, just like Obama's, but I understand to a certain degree. Like, even I have an urbanomics kind of
Please welcome
accent at
North
times.
Carolina Governor Roy Cooper.
Yeah, I don't know why Roy Cooper is the one to introduce Kamala and not
wondering if America
not Maya Harris,
still has
but
your back.
It's a bit weird, but different, I should say, because the Democrats tainting the word weird and all.
In a tight-knit neighborhood. It was the kind of place where your neighbor would look after you when school let out, where your first-grade teacher would show up at your law school graduation. It's where Kamala Harris learned what it means to be in the middle class, making every paycheck count.
Again, the middle class back then being upper middle class now. If you could afford summer trips to Jamaica and India, you cannot do that now if you're in the working class. You cannot do that in the working class nowadays. You just can't.
Compassion.
At least they kind of,
tall. If you met her, you would have thought she was 7 feet tall. And our mother, if I'd ever come home complaining about anything, she wouldn't have it. The first thing she'd say is, well, just stop the complaining. Just tell me what you're going to do about it.
And since she was a young girl,
and that is the attitude of Indian culture. There's a saying, I actually referenced it in day one, but I never stated it.
Help herself.
The tears of strangers is only water.
And standing up.
That's the morality of a non-Christian nation. And there's beautiful things about India, don't get me wrong. There are absolutely beautiful things about India in India.
Now,
but
I could say it was her calling.
The morality of caring for others. That's why
targeted women and children.
Mother Teresa actually is controversial in India, is because even though she did wonderful things, she still converted people away from Hinduism. That's the reason. If you guys ever wondered why Mother Teresa has mud slung at her for some reason, that's a lot of the reason why. Is Indians on the internet is the best way I can explain that. But also Indians, intellectuals, and other people like that.
In America.
So this is obviously just a bunch of fluff and everything like that, but I wanted to make that very clear, that if Kamala Harris ever seems cold, like weirdly cold to you on a moral level, that's the reason. This culture that, again, demands a level of a non-Christian approach to empathy is the best way I can explain that.
The power to make decisions about the male body.
I'm not thinking of any right now, Senator.
She fought to keep our children safe.
Yeah, yeah, that's another thing we should talk about with Kamala Harris. How much...
Where you learned about how you need to hide in a closet or crouch in a corner in the event that there is a mass shooter. Look at that.
Yeah, and again, it should be said, the mass shooting epidemic is most made worse by the media. Psychology universally agrees with this, that it is the fame that you get from doing that that actually encourages people to do that.
She beat Big Pharma to lower prescription drug costs and cap the cost of insulin.
So, but yeah, we should all remember Kamala Harris presided over the grilling of Trump Supreme Court justices' picks. And we all know how bad that was. But that's never, again, that's not mentioned. So we got some fluff. We got some times where she came out not this time. And Kamala Harris arrives on stage with copyrighted music. The coronation is now here. This is the event you've all been waiting for. We kicked out Joe Biden for this lady. You barely hear her speak outside of controlled environments, so here's another controlled environment for y'all. Aren't y'all lucky? And again, they're trying to astroturf that love of her laugh. All right, let's see what she has to say. To plug the show real quick, we interviewed the previous speaker, Jason Crow's opponent, John Trabocatori, on our last podcast episode. Y'all should check that out. Link will be in the description. So now they got Kamala signs. We had Jill, Doug, Tim, and now Kamala. Kamala has come to speak. Kamala La Chancla, the flip-flopper, who will not allow fracking, or maybe she will allow fracking, I don't know. Maybe weed should be still illegal, I don't know. That's another thing, real quick, not one word from the entire DNC. I scoured the whole thing. Basically, from everything I can pick up, from everything I've seen, unless there was something slipped in somewhere, unless they laced the rhetoric somewhere, nothing about marijuana legalization. Nothing. Trump actually has stated he will look into it and is actually well open to it. Democrats, no. Just no care for the green vote this year at all. Okay, so we got a long applause, which is very likely.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Okay, let's get to business. All right.
So again, just the adulation from the crowd. Just
by thanking my most incredible husband, Doug.
Also, apparently I was right about a lot of people liking Doug but not Kamala from the James O'Keefe videos.
And happy anniversary, Dougie.
Yeah, that's kind of fun. Yeah, that's kind of funny that this is their anniversary. Imagine spending your anniversary basically away from your wife for majority of the time because she's got to do this.
When I the path that we have traveled together, Joe, I am
right before we kicked him out.
Your record is extraordinary as history
but not good enough.
And your character is inspiring. And
but not inspiring enough.
You and Jill, and are forever thankful to you both.
We are forever thankful for you guys stepping out of the way.
And to Coach Tim Walls.
Assistant coach. Again, he is an assistant coach, not a command sergeant major, barely a hunter.
An incredible vice president.
You know, again, this guy pads his resume better than a millennial. Like, and I should know.
The delegates and everyone who has put.
Oh, who am I kidding? Every generation pads their resumes.
Your support is humbling. So, America,
we're the only ones who actually get called out for it, though, I guess, right? We don't get nothing.
In recent weeks
from the lady who said that 18 to 24-year-olds are stupid.
But I'm no stranger to unlikely journeys. So, my mother, our mother, Shamala Harris, had one of her own. And I miss her every day, and especially right now. And I know she's looking down smiling. I know that. So my mother was 19.
Well, that's not really how Hindu philosophy works, but I actually don't know if her mother was a Hindu or a Christian. I wasn't sure about that, so I won't say nothing about that.
To be the scientist who would cure breast cancer. When she finished school, she was supposed to return home to a traditional arranged marriage. But as fate would have it, she met my father, Donald Harris.
Hey, the first mention of her father. Who's not there.
Love and got married,
even though he's still alive.
Of self-determination made my sister Maya and me. Growing up,
imagine that saying, "Oh, my parents made an act of self-determination, and then I was born."
Truck packed with all our belongings, ready to go to Illinois, to Wisconsin, and wherever.
She's really pulling for Wisconsin.
My early memories of our parents together are very joyful ones. A home filled with laughter and music, Aretha, Coltrane, and Miles.
But not the Mighty Douglas, apparently. We didn't listen to that. We didn't listen to actually Caribbean music, apparently, at all.
My father would say, as he smiled, "Run, Kamala, run. Don't be afraid. Don't let anything stop you."
Especially don't let anything stop you from claiming you smoked weed while throwing people in jail for it.
From my earliest years, he taught me to be fearless. But the harmony between my parents did not last. When I was in elementary school, they split up.
Imagine mentioning your parents' divorce at your acceptance speech.
Before she could finally afford to buy a home, she rented a small apartment in the East Bay. In the Bay, you either live in the hills or the flatlands. We lived in the flats. A beautiful working-class neighborhood of firefighters, nurses, and construction workers.
Do you know how much construction workers made in California during that time, during the boom of everybody from New York moving there? Those people were working class in the sense of they did work for a living, but they were not poor.
To help raise us.
Remember what Chris Rock said? You know what the guy who lives next to me does? He's a dentist.
Below us and became a second mother.
If you're a dentist, are you part of the working class? No, I think you're part of the bourgeois. I'm sorry. Congratulations for you. I mean, really, but you're not working class exactly like that.
And all of them, family by love.
We made friends there. We make friends. We know how to make friends. Yes.
How to make gumbo.
And how to make gumbo.
How to play chess. And sometimes even let us win.
It's like J.D. Vance talking about his grandmother never letting him win at cards.
And told us we could be anything and do anything. They instilled in
but not
us
smoke
the
marijuana.
values
Just want to be
they
clear about that.
personified. Community, faith, and the importance of treating others as you would want to be treated.
I thought the golden rule was mind your own dang business. Which, by the way, evil has no rights. We don't have to ignore evil. Just that's the only comment on Tim Walz's speech I could possibly make.
Brown woman with an accent.
A brilliant brown woman with an
as
accent.
The eldest child,
That's an interesting way to describe your mother.
The world would sometimes treat her. But my mother never lost her cool.
I really highly doubt that her mother never lost her cool.
A trailblazer in the fight for women's health. And she taught Maya and me a lesson that Michelle mentioned the other night. She taught us to never complain about injustice. But do something about it.
Never complain about injustice. We have complained about injustice exactly 0 times at this DNC, guys.
That was my mother. And she taught us, and she also taught us, and never do
She also
anything
taught us.
half-assed. And that is a direct quote. A direct quote.
Interesting to hear the vice president swear on the DNC.
Of the civil rights movement. My parents had met at a civil rights gathering, and they made sure that we learned about civil rights leaders, including the lawyers like Thurgood Marshall and Constance Baker.
Well, she's going to be a lawyer. That's probably why. I remember something. I'm going to quote this. This is not my opinion.
Promise of America.
It came from a Pakistani gentleman, so I'm going to qualify that there. I remember I was working with a Pakistani gentleman, and he used to say this all the time. Indian woman always trouble boss. Now, given that's kind of like a Palestinian criticizing an Israeli or vice versa, so take that with a grain of salt.
You see, when I was
but
in high school,
every time I think of every time Kamala Harris
my best friend Wanda
states her past, I just picture my Pakistani friend in the background and wonder what his opinion of this is.
So one day I asked if everything was all
Which is funny because Indian Americans actually traditionally support Trump.
She was being sexually abused by her stepfather.
And we have a VEC and everything like that. So that's interesting about that, honestly, is that the Indian Americans, even though Kamala Harris talks endlessly about her Indian mother, won't claim the culture she comes from more specifically. It's interesting.
To dignity and to justice.
So I'm sure a Pakistani man would say an Indian man would say Pakistani woman always trouble. But I don't know. If you're from India or Pakistan, leave a comment and fight about that maybe.
I charged it not in the name of the victim, but in the name of the people. For a simple reason.
Yeah, and when it says the people of X town versus you, isn't that interesting? We, the people, the government, claiming the mantle of you are against you. So what, you're suing yourself? You know, I actually brought that up to the city of Mundelein at one point. And that was one of my decisions for why I wanted to leave Illinois.
Should be made to fight alone.
They make sure to gang up on you is what it is.
Together. And every day.
But that was the attitude from back home and in Democrat areas. It's, well, we're not changing the rules for you no matter how much you're good at your own defense and can cite the law.
Kamala Harris for the people.
Yeah, so when it says the people versus individual citizen, again, that's government versus that. This is very disingenuous.
I've only had one client, the people.
The state government, again, not the people in that sense. It says the people, but it really doesn't feel that way.
On behalf of every American, regardless of party, race, gender, or the language your grandmother speaks.
But you gotta speak the way that
and everyone
Mid-Atlantic people speak.
Set out on their own unlikely journey. On behalf of Americans like the people I grew up with, people who work hard, chase their dreams, and look out for one another. On behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination.
She accepts the coronation. What was she gonna do? Reject it? Hey, Tim Walz finally doesn't look like he's about to cry.
And with this election,
It should be said, yeah, with his son crying and everything, the family appears very emotional. So, I mean, who cares, right? I mean, it's just who they are.
our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past.
Has the opportunity to, but you know they're not gonna.
A new way forward.
The new way forward. Status quo. Let's think. The Democrats haven't been the conservative party in the past. They've just always been the status quo party. When the Republicans move the needle in America, the Democrats align with that more, but also reject it more.
Watching tonight. And I want you to know, I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country above party.
You can trust her. Again, a politician saying you can trust me. You know, Donald Trump never says trust me. He says look at what I've done. Any politician who says trust me, don't trust them. Oh, for the love of all that is holy, do not trust a politician who says trust me. Any man who says trust me cannot be trusted.
A president who unites us around our highest aspirations. A president who leads and listens, who is realistic, practical, and has common sense, and always fights for the American people. From the courthouse,
we had that with Donald Trump. What do we need you for?
That has been my life's work.
Yeah, from the courthouse to the White House, she has always been in the government and needs to be. Because if she loses this election, she has nothing. That's something people got to realize. She has no political position if she loses. She doesn't want to lose.
As Attorney General of California, I took on the big banks, delivered $20 billion for middle-class.
I really want to know how she took on the big banks, because
pass a homeowner bill of rights.
Handing out the money that Obama disseminated is not what you could consider helping fight the banks. That's just receiving money from the government and giving it to people who got hurt by the banks.
Students being scammed by big for-profit colleges.
Yeah, because that's a big problem in America, right? For-profit colleges, big problem, top of the list. And again, if you really care about that, then why don't you forgive the student loan debt that you... Not a single word about forgiving student... I didn't even hear Bernie Sanders really talk much about forgiving student loan debt. They have dropped you. They have dropped you if you are in the youth of America. Just period.
These fights were not easy. And neither were the elections.
Hiding under a table while doing nothing about the border wasn't easy, I tell you what.
We were underestimated at practically every turn. But we never gave up.
We waited until Joe keeled over and we made our move.
And that's the fight we are in right
Is the future really, is a future that is worse than your present really worth fighting for? That's what we've always had a problem with Democrats. Progress for progress' sake is not progress.
This election is not only the most important of our lives.
Because I could become president.
Of the most important in the life of our nation.
It's always going to be the most important election from now on, isn't it?
Donald Trump is an unserious man.
Took about quite a bit to actually start talking about Donald Trump.
But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious.
Consequences, not really. Prosequences, very awesome, actually. Fantastic, really.
Not only the chaos and calamity when he was in office, but also
that we made sure happened. When she, for example, encouraged the riots in Minneapolis.
The last election. Donald Trump tried to throw away your votes.
And when the Venezuelan opposition did that, we didn't say anything about that.
To the United States Capitol, where they assaulted law enforcement officers.
And those law enforcement officers shot somebody and killed them.
Own party begged him to call off the mob and send
Because
help.
again,
He did
I
the
mentioned this on
opposite.
day 2.
He fanned
Was
the
Melania and Trump
flames.
supposed to just tweet and everybody was supposed to look at their phones after they see the tweet and immediately leave?
Set of crimes,
It's unrealistic. It's assuming that Donald Trump was the catalyst for January 6th when he wasn't. The anger of the American people was. That's like saying, oh, that the opposition head in Venezuela is the only reason why anything's happening there. No, it's the anger of the people who are finally done with
what he
it.
intends to do if we give him power again. Consider his explicit intent to set free violent extremists who assaulted those law enforcement officers.
Again,
at the
free
Capitol.
like the people that we interviewed on our show. Those are the people she's talking about that she wants to keep in jail.
Political opponents and anyone he sees as the enemy.
Which you guys didn't do at all after. It's amazing. That was amazing right there. Oh, he wants to pardon his extremists, and we want to keep him in jail. No kidding.
Consider.
And they're not extremists, as you saw from our interview with a great one of them.
After the United States Supreme Court just ruled that
You mean the Supreme Court that you want to completely hamstring from ruling your laws unconstitutional?
Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails. And
How dare Trump be Trump?
He would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States. Not to improve your life, not to strengthen
Not to,
our
as
national
RFK talks
security,
about, making your food healthier and your dollar stronger and your industrial base better, and Chinese industry no longer over us, and Russia defeated in Ukraine, and Iran finally put on the defensive again.
And we know what a second Trump term would look like.
Yeah, all
It's
those things
laid
I
out in
just
his budget
mentioned.
2025, written by his closest advisors, and it's some total.
If Heritage Foundation actually was Trump's closest advisors, he would have never won the election. I'm sorry, guys, but you tried to help Mitt Romney, and look how well that did. I'm sorry. Wonks don't win elections, is all I'm saying.
We are not going back.
Not one step back.
We are not going back.
They should just have, like, blocking battalions at this point. You have to clap.
Cut Social Security and Medicare. We are not going back to when he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. When
Obama's right. Nobody calls it Obamacare anymore, not even Kamala.
We are not going to let him eliminate the Department of Education that funds our public schools.
The Department of Education would not, if we eliminated it, then something else would fund the public schools.
Programs like Head Start that provide
Why does the Department of Education have to be the middleman and take money out of that?
America, we are not.
The children, we want to give you the right to abort. That's what's always, the Democrats need an answer for that. What are you going to do about the disingenuousness whenever you talk about children? I find it interesting that a lot of the Palestinian scarf wearers are still cheering for Kamala. We'll get to that.
To a future.
Forward,
with
comrade,
a strong
yes.
And growing middle class, because we know a strong middle class has always been critical to America's success. And building
Does anybody even know what
middle
working
class will be a
middle class
defining
is
goal of
anymore?
my presidency.
Certainly not these people, because again, middle class was something completely different to them than it is now.
And I'll tell you, this is personal for me.
It is personal. You need emotional power, basically. Or you take
kept a strict
emotional
budget.
need in power.
We lived within our means, yet we wanted for little.
Yep, that's a typical Indian household. And the reason I say this is because Indian Americans actually surpass Jewish Americans in terms of generational wealth accumulation as a single entity, as a single group.
Opportunity is not available to everyone.
And again, she came here with a
That's why
PhD,
we
so
will create what I call
her mother.
An opportunity economy. An opportunity economy.
And that's often what happens. People from India are often not poor when they come here. There's often the richer people that come here. Vivek's family is kind of an example of that as well. It's not like Hispanics who usually come here as part of the working class with no generational wealth and little to no education.
Together labor and
That's one reason I think they don't really care about us the same way, honestly.
and entrepreneurs
They look down on us for our lack of education and our working class backgrounds.
Jobs, to grow our economy, and to lower the cost of everyday needs like health care and housing and groceries.
Why don't you do it now then? You're the vice president.
Access to capital for small
You're
business
de facto
owners
the
and
president with Joe,
founders.
you know, pseudo 24th Amendment or whatever it is.
America's housing shortage.
20th, who cares? Who even remembers past the 17th?
Now compare that to Donald Trump, because I think everyone here knows.
I'm sorry. It was fine, but she did hit the microphone with her hand. That was kind of funny.
He doesn't actually fight for the middle class. Instead, he fights for himself and his billionaire friends.
Like, you guys are the only ones that had billionaires at your dang speaking roles in your DNC, though.
Up to $5 trillion to the national debt. And
from COVID,
while,
but okay.
He intends to enact what in effect is a national sales tax, call it a Trump tax, that would raise prices on middle-class families by almost $4,000.
Again, it should be said that national sales tax would replace the income tax. Do you pay more than $4,000 in income tax? Oh yeah, you do.
That will benefit more than 100 million Americans.
There is no such thing as a targeted tax cut in a progressive tax system. They're going to basically put up loopholes for their friends in the upper middle class, and that's about it. That's all that happens.
Unless Americans are fully able to make their own decisions about their own lives, especially on matters of heart and
unless you
home.
want to smoke something or start a business or anything like that,
tonight,
or
in America, too many women are not able to make those decisions.
That's.
And let's be clear about
we
how
offer
got
abortion
here.
and nothing else.
Donald Trump handpicked members of the United States Supreme Court to take away reproductive freedom, and now he brags about it. In his words, quote, "I did it and I'm proud to have done it," end quote.
Good.
Well, I'll tell
He allowed
you,
your states to actually make a vote on
over the
it.
past 2 years, I've traveled across our country, and women have told me their stories. Husbands and fathers have shared theirs. Stories of women miscarrying in a parking lot, developing sepsis, losing the ability to ever again have children.
Again,
All
nobody
because
wants
doctors
that.
are afraid they may go to jail for caring for their patients. Couples just trying to grow their family, cut off in the middle of IVF treatments. Children who have survived sexual assault, potentially being forced to carry a pregnancy to term.
Again, nobody opposes these exceptions.
In our country
No, it isn't.
because of Donald Trump.
Because, again, Roe v. Wade getting kicked to the states did not stop, did not begin any of that. It was already standing state law. Donald Trump is not the governor and legislator of every single state.
Ban medication abortion and enact a nationwide abortion ban with or without Congress.
Again, not even Project 2025 calls for an abortion ban.
He plans to create a national anti-abortion coordinator.
Good. We shouldn't have abortion. Isn't that a telling thing?
Miscarriages and abortions.
Which is information we already collect. It's ridiculous. They're booing the collection of data,
Out of their mind.
yet they want a national gun registry. We should want less abortions even if you're a Democrat who is pro-abortion. We don't want babies being killed. And especially when the vast majority of victims of abortion are minorities, poor people, and women above all others. But they trust women. Again, what, to trust women to kill the poor minority and fellow women? This is eugenics this is dysgenics.
Of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law.
Yeah, exactly. She wants to enshrine the culling of the peasants. That is how these people see it. That's how it is. The UN reports that over 1 million women across the, it might even be larger than that. It might be 300 million. I don't remember what the number is. we might talk about that in the show and give a link, that millions of women are literally missing from the gene pool of the world. Millions of women across the world are just missing in the gender ratio, not just in China. That's a result of mass abortion. Mass abortion is an attack on the middle class, working class, all classes actually.
And the freedom that
clean water like in Flint, Michigan, I guess. Democrat-controlled Flint, Michigan, it should be said.
With this election, we finally have the opportunity to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act.
Why would we need legislation to allow people to vote? They already can vote.
Let me be clear.
Fortification, I guess.
After decades in law enforcement, I know the importance of safety and security, especially at our border.
I knew she was going to say the border. This is such egg on the face moment.
Together Democrats and conservative Republicans to write the strongest border bill in decades. The Border Patrol.
It was the strongest bill because it's the only one y'all bothered to write in 20 years.
A border deal would hurt his campaign. So he ordered his allies in Congress to kill the deal. Well, I refuse to play politics with our security.
Yeah, you refuse to do anything about our security.
As president, I will bring back the bipartisan border security bill that he killed, and I will sign it into law.
I promise, that failed bill that didn't pass, I will try to bring it back. I could do it now, but I won't do it now. I'll do it later if you elect me, maybe.
Of immigrants and reform our broken immigration system. We can create an earned pathway to citizenship and secure our border.
Maybe you would need to talk to some Hispanics at the border to know that, but you don't ever go to the border. So.
And America.
Because remember what Hugo and Greg Lopez have been talking about with the red card system. We have a lot of knowledge here in Colorado about the immigration system. So need to be pushing that.
I have confronted threats to our security, negotiated with foreign leaders, strengthened our alliances, and engaged with our brave troops overseas.
I mean, barely. She barely did jack diddly squat at the Ukraine peace conference.
Always has the strongest,
that's
most
what I'll
lethal
remember.
Fighting force in the world. And I will
I love the mother forcing the child to clap on the side. That's great.
For our troops and their families, and I will always honor and never disparage their service and their sacrifice.
This is the woman who abandoned our troops in Afghanistan, abandoned our equipment in Afghanistan. I mean, the Taliban took more equipment from us from the withdrawal than we have given to Ukraine under this administration. Just let that sink in. The Taliban got a bigger aid package from the Biden-Harris administration than Ukraine has. That is absurd, and that is a fact.
For the 21st century, and that we
so anybody who says, and there's a lot of talk on Twitter about this, Kamala is the only choice for Ukraine, no, it isn't. She hasn't done anything. It's been 2 years, and it's taken 2 years for F-16 to arrive in Ukraine, and they're not even American F-16s.
To invade our allies. Said Russia could, quote,
do
whatever the hell they want.
No, that was Obama who said that, actually, but okay.
Russia attacked Ukraine, I met with President Zelensky to warn him about Russia's plan to invade.
That's absurd. No, I have a personal problem with that. Joe Biden claiming again and again, oh, I warned Zelensky. This is an implicit implication that, or explicit implication, that Zelensky ignored American warnings that it would have. No, we were telling them, oh, pull back from the border, which is the same thing that the British and French did to Poland, which weakened the defenses that allowed Hitler to invade. Fact. It is more Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's fault that Ukraine was invaded than anybody else, and that was one of the reasons why. They were telling Ukraine, don't escalate, don't escalate. And look what happened. The entirety of the south area of Zaporizhia and Kherson would probably still be in Ukrainian hands if they were allowed the forward deployment that they should have been allowed.
Israel's right to defend itself.
Yep, and that's probably going to be the most...
Ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself, because the people of Israel must never again face the horror that a terrorist organization called Hamas caused on October 7.
So there it is. Yep, Kamala Harris is taking a very staunch pro-Israel stance.
Sexual violence and the massacre of young people at a music festival. At the same time, what has happened in Gaza over the past
It's amazing
10
because
months
what's
is
happening in Gaza is
devastating.
effectively, from the Hamas's perspective, an anti-colonialist perspective of war, which is what the DNC is all about, anti-colonialism. Leftist, you know, the Islamist movement is much more leftist than people think it is.
Of suffering is heartbreaking.
Then why do you keep supplying weapons to
President Biden
them?
and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza
Again, a
ends,
ceasefire
and the
can't
Palestinian
happen
people
if the
can
hostages
realize
are
their
released.
right to dignity,
Hamas has no bargaining chip for the negotiations after the ceasefire. So she's basically saying, I'm not going to do anything. You know, I have sympathies on both sides. I really do.
I will never hesitate to take
We
whatever
had
action is
acquaintance with one of the
necessary
people
to
that
defend our
was
forces
killed by an
and our
Israeli
interests
airstrike in
against
Gaza.
Iran
We
and
absolutely
Iran-backed
have sympathy for
terrorists.
both Palestine
I will
and
not
Israel.
cozy up to tyrants
But somebody
and
has to
dictators
win.
like Kim Jong-un,
It's sad,
who
and
are
it shouldn't
rooting
be
for
that
Trump,
way.
who are
But a
rooting
victory
for
looks
Trump.
like actual peace.
Because, you know,
Not
they
promising
know,
to end a war.
they
That would be like
know
promising to end the war in
it's easy
Ukraine
to
by offering
manipulate
Ukrainian
with flattery
territory.
and favors. They
It's not how the
know
war
Trump
ends.
won't hold autocrats accountable because he wants to be an autocrat himself.
This idea that Trump wants to be an autocrat is very silly. I
And
mean,
as president,
that's not what
I
Democrat
will
nations ever do.
never
Ever look
waver
at
in
like
defense
Mexico's
of America's
Maximado?
security
That's
and
more what
ideas,
happens in
because
democracies.
in the
It's what Obama's doing and
struggle
Clinton's doing,
between
ruling from the
democracy
side.
and tyranny,
Much better.
I know where I
Have
stand,
puppets.
and
Don't
I
be a
know where
dictator.
the United States belongs.
She always tries to look really strong with those poses, you know. Bit of weak pretending to be strong kind of thing going on, as Adam the Traitor talked about.
Fellow Americans.
How many people are getting smacked in the head with those Kamala signs? You gotta wonder.
I love our country with all my heart. Everywhere I go.
Yeah, not too many
is
we love
everyone
yous,
I
honestly.
meet.
There was way more we love
I see
Joe,
a nation
honestly.
That is ready to move forward.
Which, there's an underestimation of how many
Ready for the
Democrats are
next
disappointed that Joe was
in the
ousted.
incredible
That's
journey
going to matter in the
that is
national election.
America. I see an America where we hold fast to the fearless belief that built our nation and inspired the world. That here, in this country, anything is possible. That nothing
Except
is
buying a
out
home
of
or affording
reach
groceries or affording gasoline,
America,
apparently. Traveling
where we
outside the
care
country, you know.
for one another.
Again, there's
Look
no
out
recognition that
for
there's
one another
problems.
and
They can't recognize that
we
there's
have
problems
so much
because they're
more
in charge right
common
now.
Than what separates us.
They've been saying that so many times. There's more in common than what separates. You know, I think if that was actually true and we had more in common than what separates us, we'd all be one party. No, I think there's a lot of differences between us, and we need to be harmonious in those differences, not just pretend they don't exist.
Strength. You know, our opponents in this race are out there every day denigrating America.
Because you guys never denigrate America, ever.
Is. Well, my mother had another lesson she used to teach. Never let anyone tell you who you are. You show them who you are.
Well, she certainly has shown us who she is. I mean, that's true. Except she won't show us in a press conference or in multiple debates.
And the world,
but, you know.
who we are and what we stand for.
Yeah, let's stand for honesty and integrity and stand for a person that's open about who they are rather than somebody who shapeshifts depending on what they need to be. And who didn't enslave blacks, Hispanics, and Asians in California to slave labor in the prison system. That would also be nice. Is that too much to ask?
In the history of the world. And on behalf of our children and our grandchildren and all those who sacrificed so dearly for our freedom and liberty, we must be worthy of this moment. It is now our turn.
This speech is honestly really empty. Not gonna lie, it's really empty. It's like a lot like Trump's speech where it's mostly about policy, but it's so cookie cutter, graham cracker level.
This country we love, to fight for the ideals
she's getting the photo op there with the
and to uphold the awesome responsibility that comes with the greatest privilege on earth.
To be fair, and I'm going to be a little fair, I think her hand motions are better than a lot of the other people in the Democrat Party. But that's all I'm giving her. That's like a Chinese saying, oh, she has nice handwriting.
So let's get out there. Let's fight for it.
Like, I didn't even know this was the end of the speech. It just kind of abruptly drops and ends.
Great chapter in the most extraordinary story ever told. Thank you. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
And there it is, the Kamala speech. Kamala has spoken. Kamala La Chancla has spoken. She didn't have a lot of flip-flopping. Again, the Democrats have had like 3 issues this entire time. Trump bad, let you kill your babies, and platitudes. That's all we had for like 4 days. It's quite extraordinary, honestly. So now we're gonna have everybody come up to the stage. Yeah, this Beyonce Freedom song. We got Tim Walz making the Tim Walz faces. And more copyrighted music. The Freedom from Beyonce. Again, all girl power music going on. And just like we had at the RNC, they have a balloon drop. The stands are I will say the stands are a lot more slope downward, I notice. I guess so the Secret Service couldn't put any snipers on there to protect it, you know? But it's a lot more slanted, so I think that people actually could see things a little better. I'd love to talk to anybody who was at the RNC. Just all this stuff about to fall on Nancy Pelosi and Gavin Newsom and everything. Actually, no, never mind. This actually looks way worse. It's actually kind of a microcosm of the Democrat Party itself. If you're part of the in crowd, it's great. But if you're part of the nosebleeds, it's absolutely terrible. They were smart at the RNC. They like strategically moved people so that people could see more of it, so nobody had a complaint, basically. That was really smart. Especially since, actually, the DNC here is about twice as big as the RNC. But keep in mind, this is an invitation event. Going here is a privilege, effectively. So, like, they had people's kids and everything. You would have had to get, I think, another guest pass for that if you're at the RNC. Again, it was really about, let's be serious, let's show what the party really is about. Whereas the DNC here, there's not a whole lot of decision makers actually at the DNC. It's a small elite group that really decide everything at the DNC and the Democrat Party in general. Whereas the Republican sphere of power within the party is a lot more expansive. You can have a lot of power in the Republican Party at relatively low offices. So that's another thing about, you know, Democratic cliques versus Republican ideals. So yeah, everyone's playing with the balloons. But I will say, at the RNC, people started popping the balloons. One other point, there's more delegates at the DNC in general. They just have more delegates, more populated states, effectively. That's one of the reasons. But there's a number of reasons why there's, and they have the super delegates. which also increases the amount of guests and everybody else. So, but yeah, people started popping these balloons at the RNC. So all you heard was pap, 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 pap. And keeping in mind, this was like a few days after Trump got shot, and he didn't even flinch. Did not even flinch. And you could hear that stuff from further back in the stands. So you can only imagine what it would be like on the floor. All these things pop and pop, 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 pop. Again, just total Lionheart moment right there, honestly. Yeah, we had some pretty peppy music, and it was nice at the balloon drop at the RNC too. Honestly, it was cool. A lot of flags. They were a lot more liberal with security at the DNC. I noticed a lot more liberal. Well, then again, Trump had just gotten shot. So they just tried to kill him. So I understand why there was a lot more security. We have been talking about this DNC for far too long. Yeah, as we said, we're not going to go over day 3 just because it was such a snooze fest. And Tim Walz was it's not worth listening to, honestly. Again, he made like 1 or 2 points, mind your own dang business, and lied about his resume. That's pretty much all you need to know. Again, we'll probably see... Because we actually had one sort of copyright issue with the first video. That's why we're being very careful. And apparently we're blocked in Russia, so take that, Putin. Putin knows who he is really worried about. You know, he knows who he's worried about, and it's not this lady. So we got all the family that comes up on stage. I think the stage is more open at the DNC, honestly. There was like a series of scaffolding above the, at the Pfizer Center. There was like a big scaffolding. The United Center is pretty nice, not gonna lie. It is a fantastic place to hold this sort of thing. There's actually been times where even the Republicans and Democrats were both in Chicago at the same time. Also, I find it interesting how many rabbis were at the DNC. They had like a rabbi pastor type thing that was like a tag team a lot of the time here. I think we only had 1 or 2 rabbis at the RNC. It was mostly various pastors and things like that, and it was like 1 at a time. There wasn't like 2 people at a benediction. But that's pretty much all the information, all the comparisons rather between the two. And now we will take it away.
As we know, we have to further business to come before the convention. I am now proud to adjourn
final business.
The 49th Democratic National Convention. Thank you, Chicago.
And it's done. The gavel signifies that it is done. And the DNC is now closed. It was closed yesterday, as we know. But by the time this video comes out, it'll probably be on the... Yeah, you can all hear it. You can hear it probably in the video right now. Like, imagine you're Donald Trump and you hear this. I mean, doesn't that sound... I mean, that's the sound of Chicago right there. Pep, 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 pep. Freaking Chirac, man. Oh no, the Palestinian protesters have broke in and they're celebrating a wedding.
And with a huge cheer for the host city of Chicago,
huge.
2024.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, you'd expect the last, part, the ending to be huge cheers and everything like that. So that was the Democrat National Convention. That was Kamala Harris's speech. Honestly, I was very disappointed with Kamala Harris's speech. And it just shows, like, the Democrats have some great people for being Democrats at this situation. They really do. And yet they didn't pick the one that would have actually... the person they picked has been outed by people like... who were at the DNC that James O'Keefe captured on camera. She's been outed as one of the most unlikable people in D.C., one of the people who has the least popular following, and yet now they all have to pretend. They all have this pretend game that happens now where they pretend to like her. It's honestly really creepy. It's really cult-like in the sense of not cult of personality, but in that Marxist way of you have to be with this crowd. You have to be. Otherwise, you're not one of us. And we saw from all of Trump's opponents coming together with him and endorsing him, even RFK Jr., whereas Kamala was put up by the people she was endorsed. She's not unifying people around her. She's been plucked out to serve as much like a lot of people would know from personal family experiences. A lot of you probably know this feeling of you're chosen to be something rather than desiring to be it yourself because people see themselves in you. And again, Kamala Harris's career has relied almost exclusively on people who saw themselves inside of her. Again, another Willie Brown joke, but it's relevant. They see themselves in Kamala. And that's scary because that person asks you to trust them. This person wants to pretend that she's the only person who can bring peace to the world, even though she already has the chance now. It's a fantasy. Kamala Harris wants to be president to live in a fantasy. The Democrat candidates, whether it's Joe or her, they were the first. Joe Biden might have been the first person in history to be elected for the purpose of becoming a child again. What was the first thing that he did? Eat cookies and play Mario Kart with his daughter. You know, what's Kamala going to do when she first gets into office? Probably nothing important, and that trend will continue. It's very sad what the Democrats have done here, because I was actually thinking, oh, this is a really great convention so far. They got a lot of energy, a lot of speakers. But then the actual person that they put up comes up. And that's the weakest part by far. It's really something. But we'll be talking more about this on the show next week coming up. Again, we want to shout out again the Ukrainian Festival in Denver. You can look it up through Ukrainians of Colorado. A lot of people are going to be joining there, so it's beautiful, beautiful people, beautiful food. These are people who know what communism is. These are people who know what liars are, and they are really fantastic people, Democrat or Republican, actually. It's an opportunity to see a real community in action, and that's the kind of thing that we need more of in this country. We need more cultural festivals. We need to celebrate the culture we come from, not for just the sake of diversity, but for the sake of community and re-rooting ourselves in the great history that all of these peoples, these various peoples, have contributed to the United States, much like the Roman Empire, much like all of these beautiful civilizations that have all culminated in where we are today. And I'm sorry, I don't think that Kamala Harris is going to be the next great chapter of that civilization. I think Trump returning, the story of the West with Trump returning, is far better than Kamala Harris. And again, then this chapter closes. This chapter closes with Donald Trump. It continues with Kamala. That machine will continue. If you are a Democrat and you don't like where the Democrats are headed, vote for Trump this year. Do what RFK Jr. is doing. Because the Democrats will not change if they only lose a little bit. But they might change if they lose a lot this year. So let's make sure that they do so. Anyways, everybody, thank you so much for joining us for these past days. Join us on the show Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and we will see you at the next one. Thank you so much. Take care.